South of Midnight was one of my most anticipated games going into the year. A lot of people may not understand this, but I'm a massive fan of Compulsion Games, the studio behind this. Both of their prior works, Contrast and We Happy Few, they show loads of potential to me. They're two games that have extraordinary concept behind them, but also have massive flaws, which stem mostly from the gameplay. Compulsion has always showed that they could come up with really unique ideas for games, which is what dragged me in, but their games can feel raw and rushed and almost unfinished in some aspects. So I've been patiently waiting to see what these guys do with their next project, and I vividly remember watching the reveal trailer for South of Midnight for the first time and being super hyped. You're always going to be able to reel me in with a unique setting and vibe, and hearing that music, seeing those swamps, the animation style, I was intrigued. And then once I saw the Compulsion logo at the end, I was like, yeah, this is going to be the one. Now, I didn't know at the time Compulsion got purchased by Microsoft, so to me that really piqued my interest because this is a studio that I felt had the visionary work to do some really cool things, but they really felt limited by their resources. When I see the janky combat in We Happy Few and the copy and paste assets, the emptiness of some of the locations, it all screams to me that they just didn't have the finances to see through what they wanted. So in my head, a Microsoft acquisition makes all the sense. Now we get to see what these guys could do when there's less limitations. And then more and more information came forward about the game. We got a documentary that explained the process, which had me hooked. We got to see the sheer amount of time and effort that was put into making this game feel like an authentic Deep South experience. Understanding this culture and the people, that documentary showed me that they were taking this as serious as anyone could. But I did have some worries there. The reason why was because of the gameplay they showed. I saw some of the level designs, the platforming, the combat, and I started to have flashbacks a little bit. Because as much as I love Contrast and We Happy Few, I can also recognize the flaws that those games had that made it fall short for some people. And when I watched the gameplay for South of Midnight, it felt to me like if these ideas aren't expanded a lot deeper than what we're seeing, I think this game might be more of the same, right? Great ideas hindered by lackluster aspects. And I can humbly say, I was very wrong. And the reason why I was wrong was because what they created was not what I thought they were trying to create. I had a specific concept in my head of what this game wanted to be, and that's not what South of Midnight turned out to be at all. And because I now know what it is, we got a lot to talk about. But before any of that, I want to thank the people at Compulsion Games for not giving me a key for this game and making me pay full price. That's very chill of you guys, and I'm super blessed to have you guys humble me like that. Much love for real. Thank you, Microsoft, for not sponsoring this video. Very thrilled that you guys didn't want to work with me. It shows me I'm doing something right around here. Now, the reason I say I was wrong about this game is because I really felt that South of Midnight was intended to be an action-adventure game. Now, you may be saying, Mr. Roman, big fella, sir, I thought this was an action game, and you would be right. But this is a different era of action game. See, the action games we get today, they generally fit a specific mold. Different items that come with different stats and abilities, inventory, consumables, various weapons that allow for a laundry list of play styles, RPG elements with extensive skill trees that change the way you play. Action games today, while they can be different in some ways, they're all kind of doing a very similar thing. But South of Midnight is not a modern action adventure game. This is a classic formula. It's a callback to the PS2 era 3D platformers, the Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper. Those games played a very specific way, a way that's vastly different than the modern renditions of that genre. And I don't think you can really understand what made those games so fun unless you were there. I think if a younger fellow went back today with all the knowledge he has of modern action games, and he went and played something like Tak and the Power of Juju, he would probably be unimpressed, probably get bored quickly, right? But if you were there for those and you cherish those games, to me, South of Midnight is without question the best modern rendition we have of that style of game. Because this game combines those game elements and does them well, but adds narrative work that makes those stories look diminutive in comparison. We're just gonna dive in here because I'm about to meat ride for a few minutes, and that's all right. There's a few Game of the Year categories that I think that this game should be an absolute lock for. The biggest one to me is score and music, and I'm really trying not to be a victim of the moment here, but at the same time, this is the best original soundtrack I've heard in any game ever. This is not video game music. This is music. Each song is handcrafted to match the moments that are going on. Every step of this story has a song that hugs it and brings those vibes to the next level. The composer behind this, Olivier something French, this guy might be a genius. I couldn't believe how perfectly every song was able to match the environments here. The instrument and vocal performances were elite, and I think if this game doesn't win for best music, someone Everyone's got to get doxxed and canceled because there's no way anything this year could possibly top what this game did sonically. Now, as for performances, everybody understood their assignment. Nobody sounds out of place in this Deep South environment. Nobody sounds like a caricature or like they're putting on a show. It all feels authentic. The standout to me is the guy who played the catfish. After hearing like 5 minutes of dialogue from him, I had to stop and look up who the hell this guy was because it felt so effortless. And it turned out to be some guy named Walt Roberts from Oklahoma who lived his whole life as a cowboy. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Everybody was in their bag, man. Now, I'm a northerner myself, but I've got a lot of family from the South, specifically a lot of black Southern family who are from like that Gullah and Cajun influence. Their mannerisms and speech at times feels like they're from a different planet to me as someone who spent a lot of my time in the North. But hearing the dialogue between the characters in this game, it felt very nostalgic, like I was at a family reunion or something. It was like listening to my aunts and cousins. Their ability to capture that essence is something that's gotta be praised. Because I personally can't think of anything else in gaming that showcased this culture, especially to this high of a level. And I do think Walt Roberts should absolutely get a nod come award time for what he did as the catfish. He smoked that role. And then there's the art direction. Kind of polarizing choice to go with the stop motion Tim Burton stuff. There was a lot of talk prior about how it looks choppy and like the frame rates are bad and it's gonna feel horrible to play like that. But after playing it, I think they pulled it off no problem. The game felt great to play and the aspects of it that had those stop motion styles didn't feel like they affected the overall smoothness to me. I do feel like it's kind of gimmicky. Like in the cutscenes, it looked great and I really enjoyed it. But when you're playing the game, the stop motion stuff, it was kind of just whatever. Like it wasn't bad by any means, but I don't think it was cool either. It kind of just existed as a neutral, which is fine. You know what I mean? No points gained or lost there. But it did kind of feel unimportant in the gameplay. Now, as for the gameplay, I think this is where most people's criticism is going to come from. Whether it's saying the platforming is generic or the combat is simple and boring. And listen, I understand why people are going to feel that way. Because like I said, this game is a throwback to me. If you went back today and played Jak and Daxter, that combat is super simplistic. The platforming is bare bones. But I love those games for that. As much as I love what gaming has become, I also love where it came from. It's like if a modern rock band went and made an 80s hair metal band. Like music isn't in that place anymore. It feels like a step back. But if you were to execute it well, I'm probably going to enjoy it. Now, I don't think South of Midnight is like fully ancient gameplay, right? There's definitely aspects that feel more modern than those titles. You got a few different combat abilities. The platforming has some more depth to it with stuff like gliding and grappling and whatnot. But nonetheless, yes, this is what people are not going to like. I think if you had anything to be negative about for this game, it's that you feel that the gameplay is dated. But there's also going to be people who miss this gameplay style that are going to feel refreshed by the simplicity of it all. And I'm people. It felt really good to play an old school action adventure game that isn't just boss fights with perfect parries. You're just tagging along for this journey, hitting some stuff along the way. It was a very respectable nod to the games of the past that I hold close. Now, I don't want to talk about the story too much because I feel like breaking down story elements to people who haven't played the game makes no sense. The enjoyment in a story-driven game is being able to experience those things yourself for the first time. But I will say, the narrative work here is spectacular. This team did such an amazing job at delivering this story. You feel really engaged by all these different personalities. The main character, Hazel, was written to be this young girl who's broken and damaged, but is still optimistic and forced to be strong. Anybody who's hit like real low points in their life or has ever felt alone knows what it's like to get uncomfortable and move off instinct, right? Those survival tactics kick in. And it was really enjoyable to watch her explore and battle with not just her own traumas, but other people's as well. What that healing process is like. It really is some deep shit. I would say this is most definitely mature messaging. If you look to game stories for like, beat the bad guy and save the world kind of stuff, this might not be for you because I don't think you're going to get out of it what the team wants you to. But the narrative work here is absolutely award worthy to me. And it's the best story I've played this year so far. They knocked it out the park. I personally feel like South of Midnight is without a doubt Compulsion Games' best showing yet. I think every single aspect of this game is an improvement from their previous titles. Even the things that you may think aren't that good, they're still better than the things in their previous games. So to me, that's a really good sign because if a studio can get better with each title, that's what you're looking for. Now, why do I think some people won't enjoy this game or they'll feel that it's underwhelming? I kind of touched on it already, but This is an old school approach to a game. Gaming has evolved and become much more intricate over the course of the 21st century. If Super Mario Bros. Dropped today as a brand new game, I just don't think the audience is going to take that and go, yeah, this is one of the greatest games ever. I think gamers expect certain aspects to the way that their games play now. And this game's just not going to give you that in some areas. I'm just being real. The standard gamers are looking for out of an action adventure game today is something that plays like God of War or Spider-Man. I think if South of Midnight came out 20 years ago, it's unanimously regarded as an all-time great game, right? Like super classic. But I don't think the audience for this style of game is as big today. A lot of people are looking for something different out of their gameplay. I haven't read or watched a single review on this game up to this point, but if I had to take a guess, I would say that's probably what's going on. There's probably a decent amount of people who like some things and hate some things, and a lot of those dislikes probably come from their views of what those things should look like in today's games. Which, listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I don't want that to deter anybody. If you love those classic PS2 3D platformers, play this game. If you're even slightly interested, play it. Because I think this game could be a pleasant surprise for some people. It definitely was for me. My thoughts on this game were a roller coaster throughout the entire lead up, from being super hype about it to being as low as thinking that this game could be Compulsion's worst game yet. And I'm glad it hit the mark for me. Do I think they could have done more? Yeah, personally. My vision of what this game would be when I watched the reveal trailer years ago was a much more exploring focused game. And it would have been amazing to see these beautiful settings fleshed out more so that I could get lost for hours. But at the end of the day, my vision wasn't their vision. They had something much different in mind, which turned out to be something that I didn't even realize I wanted, a modern take on a classic genre that I love. South of Midnight was a great time, and I'm glad I got to experience it. If you like those games of the past, I think you'll like this game as well. Give me a kiss.